It was the week after Valentine's Day. I sat on my couch and I told my husband, I need to get something out of my head. And I started writing. And that weekend, I wrote 11,000 words. I had no intention of sitting down and writing a book. It was like I said, needed to get something out. Decided I had a book on my hands after that and developed a consistent writing habit that
Mhm.
helped me finish my book because I knew that I had started writing something really special at that point. I will say this, if I have a superpower, it's consistency. It's never really been a problem for me to buckle down and kind of do something. So before I opened up an email, before I looked at social media, before I got distracted, I woke up early and knocked out about 1,500 words. And if I could write more, that would be great. But that was my minimum. That was my
Mhm.
goal.
Mhm.
And boom, 5.5 months later, completed book. And it's 291 pages, I believe. So it really can happen.
Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Josefine Meets. And today is a topic that we're going to cover, which is super important that so many actually struggle with, and that is the confidence. And today we're going to talk about how to regain our confidence, because when we were little, we used to be super confident. I mean, who didn't want to climb that highest tree or do the strangest things? And now we are super scared of everything. And I have a fantastic guest, Tara LaFon Gooch, who just released her book, How to Regain Confidence. That's probably not the title of your book, Tara, but it's part of your book. And I'm super happy to have you here as a guest today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Josephine.
Thank you so much for being here. So, please give us a little bit of an introduction, who you are, a little bit about your journey, because I know you have a super interesting story about how you came to do what you're doing today. And so, give us a little bit of background about that, and then we can talk about the 5 steps that you have in your book.
Sure. So, yep, I just published a book. It just came out on Friday. How to Grasp Confidence and Own Your Powers, the name of the book. And it talks about regaining confidence because just like you said, when we're children, when we're, small, we don't know any other way other than to be confident, right? And then eventually with, societal pressures, conditioning, belief systems, hanging around a certain type of friends or family, your environment, all of these different things work to bring down our confidence levels over time. And it's especially relevant with women. And then
Mm.
it's even more women who are minorities. For me, my personal journey was one of regaining my confidence. I lost it as a child. I think a lot of people can relate to that. My story is not unique there. And it carried with me throughout my adult life. And eventually it felt like fear. Everything felt scary. Feels scary when you're not confident. And if things are scary, you don't go toward them, generally speaking, right? So it leads to a lot of missed opportunities. It leads to a lot of missed success. And I sought to change that narrative by telling my story to help other people who that resonates with.
And I also think you've said so many things already, and we're going to kind of like unwrap them one by one. But I think also one piece that is super important to remember is that we might look super confident on the outside, but what goes on the inside is a totally different thing. So
Yes.
just because someone looks confident on the outside doesn't mean that they don't struggle with confidence on the inside. So take us a little bit back. So what kind of brought you to write this book of yours?
Well, it's kind of a interesting story. So I started writing right after Valentine's Day of this year. It was the week after Valentine's Day. I sat on my couch and I told my husband, I need to get something out of my head. And I started writing. And that weekend, I wrote 11,000 words. I had no intention of sitting down and writing a book. It was like I said, needed to get something out. and decided I had a book on my hands after that, and developed a consistent writing habit that
Hmm.
helped me finish my book, because I knew that I had started writing something really special at that point, and it was a book that really needed to be heard, that from a perspective and a story that had not been told before.
And maybe to put this a little bit in perspective, I read Stephen King's biography, and I think he writes 3 to 4 thousand words per day, and he's a professional writer. If you would write a novel, that would be 100,000 words. So 11,000 words is a lot to actually get for a first-time writer to get on a piece of paper just over a weekend. So that is super impressive. So what did you do after that?
Yeah, absolutely. So after that, I did some research, because I had no idea what I was doing, right? And I think that's the inspiring part, because I'm a very authentic person. I'm not going to tell you I know what I'm doing all of the time. I'm not going to put on a pretense, because I want to actually inspire others to do this, right?
Mm,
Because we do look at the Stephen Kings in the world and say, I'll never do that. I'll never be able to be that. But honestly, everybody has a book in them, right? And you just take it in small, incremental, bite sized pieces. I will say this: if I have a superpower, it's consistency. It's never really been a problem for me to buckle down and kind of do something. But I made it my first priority every single day. So before I opened up an email, before I looked at social media, before I got distracted, I woke up early and knocked out about 1,500 words. And if I could write more, that would be great. But that was my minimum. That was my
mhm,
goal.
mhm.
And boom, 5.5 months later, completed book. And it's 291 pages, I believe. So it really can happen. You just have to have that consistent writing habit.
Would you say that part of your success, because I also know you, I mean, you grew your LinkedIn account to a massive following in a fairly short period of time too. Would you say that kind of part of your success formula is kind of like dedication, consistency, and then also setting a goal? Would you say that that is, or is there anything that I'm missing
No, I think that's exactly right. And, a lot of authors, they have great books and they send them out, but people, I feel like, do things a little backwards. So before you have a product like a book or anything, you have to have a community that knows, likes, and trusts you first, right? So building that community on social media is really important. And, gaining a network that is aligned with you, that you share valuable content, you engage with others in a community setting and support others. But that consistency over time is so important. I haven't gone almost a day, I don't think, without posting for over a year.
here?
So that says a lot, right? People are used to seeing my content. Every time I show up as my authentic self. I share value. I engage with others with reciprocity in mind. And absolutely, right? It's that consistent action that leads to success.
If we go back to someone might have, let's take writing a book for example, because there are so many people who say, oh, I would love to write a book, and then nothing really happens, also because of this whole thing, oh, who am I to think that I should write a book, and who am I to write to share my story and whatever. So I know your book contains the 5 steps of how to regain confidence. Can you please take us through those? Not in detail, obviously, for that we would need to buy your book, but can you please take us through those 5 steps and say, okay, so step one, and take us through a little bit high level on what they mean?
Sure, absolutely. So confidence starts with a foundation of gratitude. And, that may sound strange, right? How is that related? Well, I realized, at my lowest point after being diagnosed with depression and anxiety and not feeling honestly as if I had any value to give anybody,
Mm,
I started giving. I started helping out people little bit, little bit, little bit. And it created this gratitude wave really within me. But it wasn't just me, it was a ripple effect, right? And that gratitude it started making me feel confident because I started realizing how many skills I had, how much talent I had, how much I had to give to others. And for me, that gratitude was foundational because it actually helps rewire our brains, right? So, in the sense of regaining confidence, why is that important? Well, if you can rewire your brain, you can form new belief systems. And if you can form new belief systems, then all of a sudden you're not believing that you're worthless anymore. You're not
Mm.
believing that you have no value to give. You are not believing these things anymore. You're starting to rewire your brain. Gratitude is a foundational element. And, it's in a lot of success books, but it's buried in there. Chapter 7, chapter 8, chapter 9. For me, it was chapter 1. One, not just one, 1 through 3. The first 3 chapters of my book are about gratitude because it's so foundational to you developing confidence that I wanted to reinforce it that heavily.
Yeah, and it also, I mean, it's scientifically proven that when we show gratitude, there is no place for stress or for anxiety. So just it kind of moves it out of the way. So I definitely understand that you covered that piece in such detail. And that sounds like a big gap that has been missing.
Ex-
What else do you add in your book?
Yep. So that is so my book is an acronym. It's called GRASP, Grasp Confidence. So the G stands for gratitude, and I wanted to make it a easily recallable, memorable acronym so that you don't have to think, well, what is the other one? It's just very, very easy to recall, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So gratitude is the first, that's G. The second step I talk about in my book is a responsibility mindset. And what that means is it's an ownership mindset. It's an ownership mindset that owns our choices, that owns our actions, that owns our thought patterns. So that when those old habits start to resurface, which they always do, we're all imperfect human beings, that we can kind of defend, ourselves a little bit with a mindset that owns those things, and we can start to, change our realities a little bit. I think that's important. It's also a mindset that doesn't live in the past or the future, but the mindset is a present minded one anchored through gratitude. So all of these steps, they're not, totally separate from each other. They're interwoven together, and they all complement each other.
And what does A stand for in that case?
A stands for action. So I
Mm.
think that's really important. We can't overlook action. I think that's something that a lot of people overlook it, so I want to reinforce the fact that no amount of thought can replace action. It can't replace doing, right? Thoughts are absolutely important. We have to have gratitude. We have to have that mindset. But then once we have those things, now it's time to act on those things, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And it starts with self improvement initiatives and just getting a little bit better every single day and really putting in that momentum to keep that confidence going because nothing removes a lack of confidence other than that action, right? So we have to,
Action.
yeah, we have to put in the action. Absolutely.
I definitely agree. And I mean, there is a lot of talk about, manifestation and affirmations. And I definitely believe in that too. But the thing that changes things, that's the action. I
Yes.
think the whole manifestation affirmations it makes us more aware of what's going on, and we see, as you mentioned before, we see the opportunities that are there. But if we don't take action on it, nothing really happens.
Yep. You have to put in the nothing in nature is still, right?
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
when we put in action, it just all comes together. And we
Hmm.
don't always have to know every single step. We don't have to know the steps. We just have to move in a positive direction and kind of start there.
Hmm.
So, and that's how it was for me. In the beginning when I was depressed, I couldn't necessarily improve by leaps and bounds and marathons all at once. It was not possible. I did not have the mindset yet for it. I didn't have these things. but I
Mhm.
could, and so can everyone, improve just 1%.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's what I did. And I share that 1% journey in there because a lot of people, again, talk about 1%, but what does that even mean? So I break even that down in the book and what I did every single day to get to that point.
And so we have the G and R and A, and we have the S and P left. So what does S then stands for?
Yep. So S stands for sight. I think it's really important in this confidence journey of regaining confidence to understand a visual. What does that confident self look like? If you can have a visual and if you can tie a visual and if you can tie some, visualization elements to that, you're far more likely to reach your goal, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's so important to be able to put these things into an image for yourself. And when we get real clarity and really granular on what that looks like, guess what? Those action steps that we're already kind of starting to make become a lot more clear. But you have to start that process first and then really get clear on what you want. Because honestly, Josephine, most people don't know exactly what they want. So, my thing in my book is write it down. Write down some attributes, right? What does that look like?
And I totally understand that, because I was in corporate for almost 20 years, and even way before that, when I was around 14, my kind of like my path started to, that was when I said, okay, I need to be the good girl. I need to make my mom proud, things like that. So kind of for 30 years, I kind of suppressed what it really is that I want. And then you forget what it is. You forget what was really fun. You forget what was like really making you shine, what you really truly wanted to do. And then we both have kids, you and I, Tara, and then kind of they are our very first
Yeah.
focus. And our own kind of, how to say, priority, we drop down on the list. We are no longer on the top of the list. So we spoke about finding the new you, or noting down, writing down the new you, who you want to be, who you want to become, so that you can really start walking towards that piece. And what is then I probably wouldn't say the last piece of your grasp methodology, because I think that this is a process. We have to redo it and redo it and redo it. But what would be what does the P stand for?
The P stands for purpose. Finding your purpose, finding your strengths, focusing on things that you're good at, naturally talented at, how you can best serve yourself, but also humanity as a whole. Finding that purpose, that unique purpose that we all have, is an individual journey, but what makes you more confident than finding something that you're aligned with, that makes you feel alive, that makes you feel purposeful, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And we can only do that. We can't do that at the beginning. We can't do that in the middle. A purpose is a journey of self discovery. So that's why I have it as the last step of my acronym, because especially if you've gone through a lack of confidence for a long period of time in your life, the word purpose can seem far-fetched, right?
mm-hmm.
But once you start to gain that momentum through those other steps, you start to realize that purpose is actually something that you're already working towards. Maybe you didn't even realize it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is a definite part of my steps. But like you said, this is not something that you do. Okay, I'm done gratitude. Okay, I'm done responsibility mindset. I've got that piece now. And then say I'm done. There are some days that I have to go through this method literally every single day, every piece, because life is hard. Things get in our way, priorities change. We have children, so, we have a lot going on, but it's important that we understand that every day to at least apply one of these steps, right? Some days you're going to focus more on gratitude. Some days you're going to focus more on purpose or sight, but focus on one of those elements at least every day, and you will move the needle so far forward in such a short period of time that by the end of the year, you're not going to be a recognizable person. And I
Mhm.
believe that so wholeheartedly.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely and I think also, about taking these small steps or taking these small actions that we spoke about too, is also like it might seem difficult to, okay, where do I start? How do I define myself? But it's the whole thing about taking the small steps. And although I like Simon Sinek's, the why, I also think it can be a little bit counterproductive because it's like it's so big. It feels so big. And then you're like, so where do I even start? I don't have a purpose. I don't know where. So I think by putting it at the end of your methodology makes total sense because by then you realize that it's not like one big thing and then that's what I need to run towards, right? Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Hmm.
And I talk about, Maslow's hierarchy of needs as well. Um,
Hmm.
and, at the top of Maslow's pyramid is self actualization. But we can't achieve self actualization until we've satisfied our lower level needs.
Hmm.
So that's why the concept seems out of reach for somebody that has not had their lower level needs met. The same thing is with this method. That foundational element is gratitude, and then followed by mindset and so forth and so on. So if we can't skip steps, you have to have that nice foundation built so that you're constantly carving the way, that path towards your purpose. And then ultimately your most self-actualized version of yourself.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, definitely. So if you would summarize kind of like the whole methodology a little bit, what it can do to you when you, because it's also like if you're if you're trying to change a habit, if you've never done any gratitude before, if you ever noted down what I'm grateful for, said it out loud or whatever, it can be difficult to start those habits. So how would you kind of like, where should people start, and how would you summarize the whole thing?
Absolutely. So, first you have to take time to reflect. If
Mm,
you don't feel that you're grateful for anything, I understand. It's not something to be ashamed of. I once felt that way too, right? But it was because I hadn't taken care of my lower level needs. And part of that is childhood trauma. Let's face it, we all have it, right? So, this trauma that stays in our subconscious minds, that stays in our bodies, that we're holding on to this energy, and ultimately it's not serving us, right? So, it starts with that foundational element of gratitude to help relieve some of that blocked energy that is preventing us from going forward in life. So, most people have some type of trauma. Let's face it, some type of childhood event, and they're called childhood adverse events that go unaddressed, and people don't seek help, right? And a lot of times for me, it would started manifesting as a lack of confidence, and because I had never addressed it. So I just want to say that first, that most people have some type of childhood adverse event or trauma, and so they believe that maybe they have nothing to be grateful for.
mhm,
It's finding the gratitude and choosing the gratitude, because it is a choice, right? Just like choosing joy is a choice, choosing to be a victim would be a choice, choosing to be the victor of your story. So, this is all about, in summary, a personal journey of transformation and discovery through healing, through acknowledgement. But also, again, we can't go through to the next steps without addressing those and getting those lower level needs met first. But you can absolutely go from depressed, anxious, to taking steps toward confidence through that gratitude. And that's how it was for me. And, the bridge to success is actually a lot shorter than people think it is. And for
mhm.
me, since that lowest point in the beginning of my book when I write to now was only 15 or 16 short months. So those steps absolutely work. They transform my life. And I just want to share my story with the world to give hope to people that even if you've had those childhood adverse events or trauma, that you can absolutely go on to live a confident and fulfilling life geared towards your purpose through those steps.
Mm. Thank you so much for sharing that, Tara. And so, if we want to wrap this up and people want to hear more about you, want to read your stories, we will actually add the link to your book in the show notes. We will add the link to how people can best connect with you. But I still want you to say, okay, so how can people best connect with you?
Absolutely. I'm on almost all social media platforms. LinkedIn is my favorite, so I'm on there all the time, maybe more than I should be. But you can also find me on my website, taralafongooch.com, and my book is available on Amazon. But feel free to connect with me on all social media.
That is so cool. I also know you have a Facebook group where you connect your community, where people can really get to know you, get to know what, and also kind of like talk with you. And you're super responsive in the DMs too. So reach out to Tara, connect with her, listen to her story, and take that with you and use the grasp method yourself. And as you said, the bridge to success is actually much shorter than what we might think. So thank you so much, Tara, for being a guest on Josefine Meets.
Thank you so much, Josephine.
And for you who have been watching this whole episode, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to it, because I will have more amazing guests on the show, and we get to learn from each and every one of them. And that is just so inspiring and makes our lives easier, because we know if they can do it, we can do it too. So thank you so much.